Absolutely. Absolutely. The reasons that we don't have the lives that we want are the stories that we tell ourselves, right? We've got a story. There's always a story for why you can't have it, for why you those kind of things are for other people, or that, I'm this because of X, or this is why I'm like this. It's it's about dropping that story, or at least analyzing that story to go, where did I get this idea from? Like, why? Who told me? Who told me that, I'm just because this is the way my parents are, that's the way that I am. Or, I was raised this way, that's because of this is why I am. It's like, well, okay, why? Like, why do you have that belief system? Why do you believe what you believe? Who's telling you that you're an imposter? There's a healthy balance that you need to strike of being confident, but also having something to prove in that. I think certainly objectively from what I know of the Monty Van Halen, he's a bloody good guitarist, but you don't get that. You don't get that unless you practice.
Okay, everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I have an author with me. And for me, it's like, 2:00 in the afternoon, no problem, right? Hey, it's easy in the middle of the day. My guest is a little bit earlier in the morning than I am. Alex is here with me today, and we're going to be talking about his books, his writings, and he joins me from the other side of the planet from where I am. Alex, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
It's exciting. I think you said it was 4:00 in the morning.
4 a.m.
Again, I said before we record, I don't know if I could carry a conversation at 4:00 in the morning. So the fact that you're here, I really appreciate it. And for making time for me, getting out of a nice warm bed to do this. Thank you.
No, it's good. This is writing time for me. So I have two young boys, so no little people trying to steal my keyboard and mouse.
Well, the fact that you're surrendering some writing time to be with us, I appreciate that. Let's talk about that right off the bat, Alex. Like, for you, you have a life, you have a busy dad, you have family things, responsibilities. For you, writing in the morning is your time. Talk about that a little bit. For the authors listening, wrestling with their calendar, trying to find time to write. Why does this work for you to write in the morning like you do?
It's certainly more, well, there's the concept of the one thing, in that you've got a lot of responsibilities, you've got a lot of things that you could be doing, but it may or may not necessarily be your one thing. What gets you out of bed in the morning? What is the reason for you to be here? Those kind of questions that you kind of ask yourself. Like, if you could do anything, what would it be? If you could contribute, what would you be doing? And that question is really important, and it's different for all of us, in that what gets you out of bed in the morning and what keeps you awake at night, and to try and find time in the day to do that. If the will is strong enough, the how doesn't matter, right? So for myself, having a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, as soon as they wake up, it's go time. Yeah. So like, there's no sitting at a computer or writing without losing said pen or said keyboard, because they'll nick it and proceed to want to do something else. So I want this really badly, and I think I heard it the other day from Earl Nightingale. If you get up an hour earlier, you gain 6.5 extra work weeks across a year, just for getting up an hour earlier across that's the span of time. So if you want to have things done more efficiently, and certainly not to promote not getting enough sleep, but even just gaining more time, not needing to sleep in or until the kids wake up. That's certainly for me. If I want my 6 books to exist, one down, 5 to go, each 100K. By the time I'm 40, I'm currently 36, so I've got to bang out 5 books in 4 years. I better get moving.
Gosh. Wow. Okay. When we talked earlier, we had a pre-chat and kind of went through the podcast and talked about our episode together. I walked away from that, Alex, talking to you and going, my goodness, you have such a big master plan for your writings, and you are so well thought through on your goal and how everything fits together. Can you kind of give us a sense of what it's like to write with, you're doing 6 at a time, like 6 in your brain as far as your writing process? I see authors struggling with 1. I see authors struggling with 1 chapter. And so you're writing en masse, basically trying to encompass 6 different things at once. What is your secret to how you're approaching your writing?
So there's a concept known as lag and lead metrics, in that Stephen Covey came up with this, in that you have a lag metric is that of one that is fixed. It's your weight. It's your bank account at the end of the month. It's how many words you've written. It's a fixed number. You can't change it when you get to the end of the month. But what you can do is you can focus on a lead metric. And a lead metric is all the activities that influence that lag. So if you diet, exercise, your number at the end of the month will change, and you can focus on just what you do in that day, and that'll influence the lag. If you run a online business, how many products that you list or how many sales that you run can influence that lag. For writing, I only found it, I was only able to write my first and subsequently be able to stay on track for my other books that I've currently got going, is that when you fix a date for when you want something and then you calculate out how many words that is, you divide that across the number of days, and that will tell you how many targeted words you need to hit for that book to exist. And so I'm aiming for 100,000 words. I want it by the end of the year for the second book. So I divide my 100,000 words by 365. It gets me around 350 to 375 words a day. And that's what I need to hit. And that's a really good low barrier for entry, in that it doesn't matter if I do 5,000. It only matters if I do 375 or whatever number I need to hit each day to get to where I need to get to. And then if you forecast out, which I've done, how many 600,000 words by the time I'm 40, which is, I think I'm close to like 1,360 odd days, probably a bit more than that. By the time I'm 40, then I just have to hit this word count day in, day out. That's all I have to do. And there's a concept called Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg, in that when we develop a habit, when we kind of develop a muscle, what we tend to do is blow it too big out of proportion so that it becomes too hard to do. If I say, do 1,000 push-ups, it's like, I don't want to do that. Like, I want to do 1,000. But if you say, just do 1, and then tomorrow just do 1, and then tomorrow just do 1, like, that's so much easier, right? And it's the same kind of concept, is that you can take this massive idea that you have of this book and you can break it down into smaller segments and just focus on that day and just do that day and just do that day. And you'll be absolutely shocked that if you follow this kind of concept of just trying to hit this metric, just trying to hit this lag every day, this lead every day, your lag will take care of itself.
You are a very well thought through person. Is this who you are? Is this what you do for a living?
This is who I've become.
Is it what you become? Okay.
This is what I've become. This is not what I was. No.
Really? Okay. So take me back to what before this then. Who would I be talking to in the past then?
A consumer,
Okay.
a someone who was strongly utilizing my creative brain, but not my analytical brain. So I came up with the concept for my book series when I was 15, when I was working as a builder's labourer. So this idea has been in the back of my head, just kind of ticking away
Wow.
and having no idea how to write, having no idea how to form the basis of, dialogue or structure or, I like the I like books and movies and video games, and I was really good at consuming those, and I was really good at saying, well, it should do this or it should do that. But I was a gunner. I was gonna do this, and I was gonna do that, but
Mm.
never having the rubber hit the road. And thankfully, because of this idea, and I think I mentioned this to you last time. Um, I I only recently found the quote, but it was kind of the concept is the same that I found is that Alfred Adler said, "I'm so thankful to the idea that has used me in that
Mhm.
I needed to become a different version of myself to actually allow this to come into existence because the current way that I was existing of consumerism and kind of hedonistic pursuits didn't allow this idea to come forth or how to make these kind of concepts and these kind of connections become real. And so it was only through kind of the what was it? Someone said that writing is easy. All you have to do is sit down and bleed.
Mm.
Um, that's the kind of the what I found was that or I found for myself anyways, I needed to discard who I was because that wasn't working. I wasn't getting the book, for the pursuits of hedonism and consumerism. So I need to go, okay, how are other people doing it? Kind of come to the realization that well, an obvious realization that I don't know how to write, but other people do. So how do I find out how to write? How do I find out how to do structure? What is the hero's journey? What is the way to arc a character? What is the way to do all these different things? And as soon as you allow yourself to go, I don't know everything, but I'm sure there's someone else who does, and be willing to, drop the ego, then the whole world kind of opens up, and I can go, okay, how do I? Oh, this is cool. I like this concept. Let's kind of play with that. Or lag and lead. Well, that's interesting. Let me kind of adopt that, and you can begin with that, or at least kind of drop that. I know what I'm doing, and this is what it's going to be. Don't focus on the end state. That's the wrong place to be. That's important to have vision for what you want, but it needs to be a concrete, when am I going to do this? And if you don't have that specificity, it'll always just be this kind of daydream. I think that's when you go, and certainly if you commit yourself to another to say, by this date, I'm going to have the first draft of this book to you, or I have to pay you, $50 or whatever amount feels
Mhm.
kind of slightly uncomfortable. You don't want to lose it because we're motivated to go towards pleasure and get out of pain.
Right.
And you can play with those two different levers. If it's more if it's more painful to you to think I'm going to lose, if I don't get this book out to this person, I'm going to lose $250. It's like there's a motivator. Like, why have I got to write? Like, I don't want to
Yeah.
lose this
Yeah.
money. Yeah, it's like we're more motivated to lose than we are to gain. So you can play that, those kind of not mind games, but those kind of things on yourself to go, well, I really want this, and it's super pleasurable to obtain. Try and engage loss. Try and engage, oh, if I don't do this, I have to pay someone X amount of money. And then suddenly you find, well, I don't want to lose that. And suddenly you find yourself doing what you need to do. So yeah, there's the attitude of the beginner mindset. I think that's probably where I think if people are struggling with writing and trying to find ways to do it, you can Google it. Like you can just drop the ego, drop the kind of concept that you know what you're going to do and that it's going to be this and it's going to be that. Don't focus on what the outcome's going to be. Just focus on what you need to do each day, and it'll eventuate.
It's amazing. You have quotes for days, and I love this. That tells me you're well read and you're understanding and you're building a world around what you do to support you as you write. So I love that you're pulling from all these resources and to motivate you. And I love that idea about being so grateful for the idea that used me. That is such a great. That should be on everyone's wall as they're writing or in front of them as they consider writing. It's that idea using you. I love that. It's a great idea.
Well, it's the same kind of thing, and I know you're big into music. It's kind of like, yeah, where does this riff come from?
Right.
It's like you're a conduit for it, right? Which I think is cool in that it doesn't necessarily it doesn't have to be perfect, but you just kind of follow the stream. You kind of follow the wherever this greater intelligence, whatever you want to call it, kind of thing is kind of being pulled from. You can hear the music, or you can see what the world looks like, and it's just like, yeah, it's fun to play in that space, in that conduit of where is this idea, where you kind of just pulling this from somewhere, and if you kind of follow that thread, you're like, well, where does it go? And this is fun. It's a great place it's a great creative place to be in.
There's I think a thing that people kind of don't understand about creative people is like, for me musically, one of my heroes musically on guitar would be Eddie Van Halen. He's just amazing what could come out of one person and the same number of strings that everyone else has, but he could create something brand new. But at the same time, he would admit in interviews that he would be nauseous and throwing up behind the scenes before he goes on stage because he felt like an imposter. And I'm like, how is someone so creative and unique struggling with their own creativity, feeling like they're fooling everyone, that they're not really as good as people say they are? And that balance between creativity and imposter syndrome and balance, and to see somebody in the popular space struggle like that, it just makes me kind of go, okay, all right. So I want to write a book. I want to get out there and share my message, and I'm battling this voice telling me that I'm not good enough or my story's not good enough. No one's interested. Have you ever kind of cut across that yourself, where you had to kind of battle that?
Absolutely. The reasons that we don't have the lives that we want are the stories that we tell ourselves, right? We've got a story. There's always a story for why you can't have it, for why those kind of things are for other people, or that, I'm this because of X, or this is why I'm like this. It's about dropping that story, or at least analyzing that story to go, where did I get this idea from? Like, why? Who told me? Who told me that, I'm just because this is the way my parents are, that's the way that I am, or, I was raised this way, that's because of this is why I am. It's like, well, okay, why? Like, why do you have that belief system? Why do you believe what you believe? Who's telling you that you're an imposter? There's a healthy balance that you need to strike of being confident, but also having something to prove in that. I think certainly objectively from what I know of the Monty Van Halen, he's a bloody good guitarist, but you don't get that. You don't get that unless you practice.
Right. Yeah.
And I think they were all classically trained in that. It's like, if we want to be the best, we've got to be prepared to put the work in. And I think that's like we talked about earlier before we jumped on, it's like the concept of sowing and reaping, in that if you're constantly kind of putting this in, it's going to come back to you. The hours that you put into your craft, and the time, what is it? the stonecutter knows it's not the 1000th strike that broke the stone, but the 999 that preceded it. It's like just banging on the craft, banging on the craft, banging on the
like
craft.
a quote machine. I love this. I love it. I love it.
But
That's great.
it's true, and certainly for me, for being able to write, to make my book a reality, I had to get rid of the old story. I had to get rid of the old story that of telling myself why it wouldn't work, why I wouldn't be successful, why I couldn't write, why I was thinking that it was going to be this amazing thing, but never sat down to actually write. Like I had to drop the story from what I was using, because the results are pretty clear in black and white. It's like, do you either have the book or you don't? Did you write today or didn't you? And the way that we talk to ourselves and beat ourselves up about what we should do or how we should be or what we can't have is brutal. Like some people, I'll stop the quote machine, but the concept of the way that you talk to yourself, you wouldn't talk to anyone else.
Yeah.
Whereas
right. Oh yeah,
the way you should be talking to yourself is like you're your own biggest fan. Like you need to be your own biggest fan, because the interior will reflect the exterior. It's not that the life doesn't get better for you if you still have a negative outlook. You're still going to be looking for the bad, because that's the way you've trained yourself to focus upon. But if you start to become, a friend of yourself and go, okay, well, look, this is the way that I've been doing it. It's not working. I don't really enjoy the way that things are going right now. How about we change it? What if I get rid of this story? What if we change this up? Sure, there'll probably still be times where you do feel like an imposter, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It means that you've like, well, I don't feel like I belong here, so I need to work doubly hard, triply hard to kind of prove to myself that, I should stake a claim here.
Yeah. Okay, so let's jump into the books, because I think we could have a podcast just about what we've been talking about for a week. And just, again, the quote machine is here. And I love it. Please don't stop the quotes, because they're so powerful, Alex. I love them. Okay, so let's jump into the books. There's 6 that are in process at various different degrees. Kind of give us an oversight of the 6, the big concept, I guess, and then let's talk a little bit more specifics about what's out and maybe what's coming next.
Sure. So when I was 15, I was working as a builder's labourer and daydreaming out the window, and just imagine what would happen if the whole world turned blue. Like there's blue trees, blue people, blue buildings, everything is blue. And then what would happen if someone's yellow in that blue world? Oh, that's interesting. If there's a yellow person in a blue world, then there must be a blue person in a yellow world. And so this idea started to kind of form of what if there was a whole world that was made of color? What if there was a red world and a green world and an orange world? And then there's this whole kind of color wheel of worlds, and the way that we kind of treat each other is based on skin color, right? There was also around the same time, there was a concept that I found by a lady who did a high school experiment with young children, and it's called the blue-eyed, brown-eyed experiment, of how she treated the classroom based on eye color and hair color rather than by skin color. And I loved it, and it's a really powerful. It's on YouTube. You can check it out. It's a really powerful experiment. But the concept of tying that into, if people in these worlds have red hair and red eyes, who live in the red world, and there's people in the blue world who have blue hair and blue eyes, and they're kind of diametrically opposed. They don't like each other because of the way their hair color and the way their eye color is. And then you go around on the whole color wheel, and they're all kind of opposed. In the concept of colors. There's three primary colors. There's red, there's blue, and there's yellow. If you mix those three colors together, you get brown. Brown hair, brown eyes. Pretty common where we are. So the concept that I started playing around with is what happens if you drop a regular guy with no history of his origins into this world of color, and he's the prophesized one, who's going to bring balance to these worlds who are warring against each other, have kind of fractured from these colors, and he has no history of his origins. He must, you reunite all these worlds inside them, and how do we? And certainly, I started adding all these kind of different things together. It's a world that is separate for our own, and he has to travel into this world and kind of bring harmony, bring balance to it. And what I started to kind of dig into and started to kind of layer in some of these concepts is that when you cast a light through a prism, you get a spectrum of colors, right?
Yeah.
And in a prism, there is 6 vertexes. These are the 2 points of which the triangles meet. So there's 6. So there's 6 books in my series called the Prism. Along with the prism, there are faces to each. There's 5 phases. My characters must go into this realistic video game. This is the other world that they go into, and as they go in and as the book series progresses, it gets harder and harder. So there's phases to it, faces, if you will, to the game, and also what the core premise of the book series and the kind of the proponent for the progression of the book is there's 9 edges. Those are the edges of the prism, and those are the things that the characters must go into the world and collect. These are the lost edges. Think of it as your MacGuffins or your the one rings that you need to kind of go through and collect. And I've got it in such a way that there's, along with this main character who's got brown hair and brown eyes, there's other characters who go into this video game world to try and retrieve the edges. So for my first book, I've just got Kobe, who's my main protagonist, a red-haired girl and a yellow-haired man, and they all go into the respective colors of red, yellow, and blue. And then in the second book, I'll drop in green, orange, and purple, and then we'll go across the full kind of color wheel. And then as things progress, I'll start to mess around with, for the concept, it'll be 1, 2, and 3 will be kind of focused on that color wheel and the story of Kobe. And then in 4, 5, and 6, I'll start to mess around with what happens if you add light or remove light. Because when you do that, you get colors like magenta, you get cyan. So I had the concept of, yes, there's a world in kind of 1, 2, and 3, but in 4, 5, and 6 will be planets. It'll be moons. It'll be all kinds of kind of crazy, weird stuff that goes on, which is what I originally started writing. I originally started writing what I thought was the first book in the series actually turned out to be the 4th. So I had a bit of a Star Wars moment. I had to park the 4th book and go back and write this one, which was the first.
Primary. Nice. Okay, so is there room in your story for someone who's colorblind in this?
Well, this is this is some of the things that I like to play with, in that there's in the getting deep now. I found and got into the Mesopotamian creation myth around. The hero of that story is a person called Marduk, and Marduk is someone who can see all around him and he can hear. And what I'm interested in, and what I'd like to do with the main character, when I get to 4, 5, and 6, because I've got with color, you can kind of play around with dualities. So the first 1, 2, and 3 is kind of focused on white, and 4, 5, and 6 is focused on black. And with the protagonists will be different across the two different. I'll have a male protagonist in 1, 2, and 3, and a female protagonist in 4, 5, and 6. With 4, 5, and 6, with Marduk, because of how powerful he actually is, I need. It's not interesting to have someone who's like super overpowered from the start, right? It's like, this is boring. What I'm thinking and what I'm kind of playing with is, how do I make her potentially blind to color to begin with, so she can't see it. She doesn't know. She doesn't know the worlds, and the way she treats people is, based on how they are, not how their that what their color is. So yeah, it's a fun concept to think about, and certainly one to. I've got there's also the fun kind of creeping death style gray, which I call the gray, in that when you take an edge away from a planet or a civilization, they're doomed to the gray, which is like this kind of creeping fog that turns everything gray, and the people turn into kind of mindless zombies. That's a fun little concept to potentially mess around with that color blindness as well.
I think you need to redecorate your space, Alex, and have like some beakers with some smoke coming out of them and gurgling things behind you, a lab coat. You need some crazy goggles, and like, because your mind is so, oh my gosh. Like, when you talk to people about this in your family circles and friend circles, what is the response to them as you explain some of this to them? Are they kind of like their eyes rolling back a little bit, like, because it's so detailed and so amazing. Like, to spend an hour in your head, I don't know if I could survive.
This is I guess it's how long I've been gestating this idea for, and how long I've been kind of sitting on these kind of concepts. Certainly the idea of when I kind of catch people and I talk to them, it's like a blast, because this is, this is a long, long pregnancy. And very excited to kind of give it to the world for anyone that kind of catches me, I can just kind of jump to this level of energy and excitement about it, because it's all I've been thinking about. Well, certainly for since I was 15, it was kind of on and off, but certainly since the first one has been released, spending a lot of mental energy to get excited about bringing about the next one and the next one, and trying to find opportunities to talk about it, because it gets me very excited, and I love like I said, I'm grateful to the idea that's used me. So if I can find ways to conduit through this medium and others, not just the book, I think that's fun.
What does the finish line look for you? I can't imagine what crossing the finish line is going to feel like for you after book 6 is done and in the world. Like, what's going to happen? Have you thought about that, like, in the future?
Yeah, then I'm into music, because that's another love of mine. I'd love to get back to making music and do creative works. I love concert posters. There's a whole range of artists that I love for when bands kind of tour around and they make those concert posters for where they are, and they make beautiful works of art. I've always loved those kind of things. I'm always certainly with the explosion of kind of AI, playing around with that stuff is really cool. The front cover of my book and the ones that will come subsequently will have been made in Midjourney, which is an AI generation tool. So that'll only explode further. So to be across that would be fun. So once I turn 40 and all 6 books are released, I'll find myself another compelling goal that gets me up and out of bed in the morning, and then we're on to the next.
Alex, it is so impressive to sit and listen and take all this in. There's so much going on. You're also doing an audio version of your book. You've
Yes.
done how far are you in book one for the audiobook?
I've up to chapter 8 of my 31 chapters, so I'll bang them out every day and drop them onto YouTube so more people can find out about it and jump in and just check out a chapter. While at the same time, I'll be turning it into a audiobook that people can buy, so you can kind of buy the whole thing as an option, because yeah, different people consume things in different ways. Some people don't have in their minds, they don't have time to read, which is cool. Give them the option to consume it a different way.
Nice. So while we're talking about your YouTube channel, we're going to put links in the show notes, but talk about the YouTube channel you have and what people are going to find when they arrive there.
So I started doing AI artwork kind of movies. So when I dug into Midjourney for the first time, I thought, what if I turn every paragraph into like a Midjourney image, and I can make like a little AI movie, which was fun. But it takes a long time to find the right image to kind of put everything together, and I don't objectively, I don't do a great job of it as some people do. I have found this guy who I'm excited to work with to make my whole book into a little AI movie, which I think would be really cool to kind of play around with. And certainly I'd heard it described as making a book and then marketing a book are just two completely different beasts. Right. So playing around with marketing, learning how to market a book has been really fun and exciting, and different ways to do it, different mediums on TikTok, on Instagram, on Pinterest, on LinkedIn. You need to assume the role of different avatars, because the people who are consuming it are all very different. It's an image of like I can't remember who the person was, but it was like a profile picture and of all the different kind of major platforms, and the person was the same. The image is different of what kind of message you need to conduct across. Like the people who are on TikTok are very different to the people who are on LinkedIn, right?
Right. Oh,
so
yeah, for sure.
finding the right avatar for that audience and for that platform has been fun. So I, for some things on YouTube, I started kind of playing around with like little shorts of like short little blasts of like skits and stuff, having arguments with the marketing team, things like that, just to kind of play around with it and have a bit of fun, as well as the content of the book, which will be up there to just kind of play around with. Certainly some of the mini quotes that I've got, I like to do some little short blasts of videos to kind of talk into that. So it's a whole not trial and error, but certainly the rule of the law of the harvest. The more that's put out there will eventually be returned to you. So trying to provide value as much as I can and provide service, and go from there.
So beyond your characters in your 6 books being a color, I'm sure there's characteristics that differ them from others in the story beyond just the color of their skin and eyes and hair. But that being said, is there a certain color that you personally identify with from your character list? You're like, I really feel like I'm a blue, or I'm a red, or where do you fit on this color spectrum?
So of the 7, or of the 7 colors, so the 6 books will be, I can't get all 7 colors of the rainbow, and I feel like I can kind of fuse indigo and purple together, right? And just make one purple. Wonderful number, and it goes deep because you've got 7 heavenly virtues, 7 deadly sins,
right?
7 colors of the rainbow, and that the sins and virtues is something that I kind of play around with for each of the concepts of the book. In that, the first book, which is red, is anger, and as well as kind of temperance. So they kind of play with these kind of concepts of, you've kind of got the kind of a temperate person kind of dropping into an angry world, and you can kind of try and find a way to kind of resolve that. And then when we get into um sorry, the first one is greed, not anger. The second one is greed. Second one's anger. I'm still actually playing around with those concepts, but the the deadly sin and the heavenly virtue is the one thing that I'm kind of playing around with. So sloth is probably what I previously identified with, and probably moving into that that other form of certainly being raised in Australia. There's a tendency to relax a little bit. Not that the Australians are slothful or anything like that, but there does seem to be a bit of, oh, you'll be right. Like, don't worry about it. Kind of take it easy, kind of take a bit of a back seat kind of mentality, which I kind of drop into the book a little bit, in that the worlds are somewhat a little bit based on major countries, in which the yellow people are kind of Australian. They're kind of a little bit laid back. They're kind of a little bit slothful. So for myself, probably moving from that, where I was in my 20s, into that kind of relaxed, consumerist, hedonistic kind of person, into a more, hopefully, heavenly virtue of a industrious person.
There you go. See, I always like to see where the author finds themselves in their own writings, because that's, you kind of learn more about yourself as you write your own words. You're kind of teaching yourself, right? So it's kind of interesting that the teacher is also the student at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's like, where did I get this from? Like, how did this? Why do I do this? It's being curious as to your own kind of motivations and your own idiosyncrasies is very interesting. Certainly, it kind of creates a nice little disconnect between sometimes the things that you do and understanding the reason that you do them, because it might be a need that you're fulfilling, right? You know, you might not have another channel that you can to fulfill that need. So certainly for identifying myself as kind of somewhere between kind of slothful and industrious, I would certainly say that I was on kind of that further spectrum of the slothful end when I began it, and I think I'm slowly kind of moving back towards the industrious side. But would have only found that out had I have not had this idea.
And just a reminder for those that are listening to our conversation, that I don't know if you listening could have this type of conversation at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, but Alex, like, you're giving up time for your writing to do this, and I really appreciate it. Does it help to kind of talk these things out and speak about your writing? Like, what helps you kind of stay on track to keep pushing forward to meet those daily quota for writing?
There's the brain doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality. So what we imagine in our heads is just as vivid and just as motivating for what we experience in reality. So if you have a really good imagination and you can imagine what it's like, how it feels of all your five senses to have what you want now and get excited about it, you just get energy immediately. Like, to think of the most fantastic outcome that you could possibly want for your books. You know, you're on the red carpet for your movie premiere of your book that's, scored by Hans Zimmer, Like it's just like, okay, this is great. Like I'm there. Like you can drop into that immediately and go, right, all right, let's go. So knowing that and knowing that if I have this vision for where I want to be and I can get excited about that, you can spend time. They have the concept of visualization to imagine to what it is that you want. And if you stay connected to that, and again, talking about that lag and that lead, if you have a clear vision for what you want and when you want it, what you think you become, right? And if you're focused on that goal, if you look at it every day and you can see yourself moving towards that, you're going to get it. Now, that's not a guarantee that you're going to get what you imagine, certainly for like the most best possible outcome, but you're going to get pretty close, because the more that you can visualize it, the more that you can engage those five senses, the more detailed you can get of what it's going to be like. You'll find ways to make this thing real, and it's applicable to everything. It's applicable to health, it's applicable to finances, it's applicable to book writing, it's whatever you want it to be. If you can spend that time, or first know what it is that you want, have it written down, have it visible to you in the morning to get up and go, this is my goal, and look at it and get excited. Before you go to bed at night, read it so your brain can kind of come up with different ideas to make it a reality. The how doesn't matter. If the why is strong enough, the how doesn't matter. Your mind will come up with different ideas to make it a reality. So for myself, for my books, I'm like, yeah, this is cool. I've kind of got this idea. I want to make it a reality, but the method and the medium of which this book can get translated into is so many different ways. So there's graphic novels, there's AI art, there's posters, there's movies, there's TV shows, there's all these different things that are potentially out there to play with and to try and to find different ways that people can consume. I don't hazard a guess to how many people know about Game of Thrones because of the TV show, who had no idea what this book series was prior to that, right? It's the same concept in that if you have an idea of what you want, and when you want it by, and you're taking those steps every day to make it a reality, then you feel successful. And because you feel successful, you take even more confident strides to make that thing a reality. So it's about just dropping into that every day, connecting to that goal, connecting to that vision, visualizing what it's going to be like at its best possible outcome, completely cutting out all the negative thoughts of why you can't have it, and people telling you to be realistic, and people saying, you can't be the next J.K. Rowling. Like, I don't want to be around those people. Like, I want to be as visionary and as exciting and as wonderful as it could possibly be, because that's going to motivate me to keep taking that repeated action.
I love it. Okay, so Alex, again, you've surrendered so much of your writing time. I feel like I'm really cutting into your words per minute.
Oh, no, don't be. It's all good. There's lots of time in the day.
I love it. Alex, where do we send everyone? Again, we have the YouTube channel we mentioned. Where are you most active on social media? People want to connect with you. And then as well, where can we purchase the books now and into the future?
So the main website is the prismhexology.com. That's where I've got all my handles to my YouTube, to my Instagram, to my TikTok, to the likes of. You can see my dad reviewing my book, who gave a nice glowing review. Thanks, Dad, which is fun. I didn't pay him. He's a fantasy nut like me, which is cool. It's a very special day to get him to read it, and he liked it, which is fun. It's a nice nod. So buy books online, it'll be there. If any bookstores have decided to print it and sell it in their shelves, it'll be in those. But yeah, best place is Amazon or Goodreads. You can see a link directly from my site to buy it, as well as you can jump on YouTube and you can just have a listen to me narrate it if you want to try before you buy.
Okay, I'm going to wind up the Alex Holland quote machine one more time. It's for new authors that are on the very beginning stages of writing their book. Alex, any quotes, any thoughts, anything we can leave a new author from your perspective to encourage them to get their story out and share their message?
Ask yourself, when do you want this?
Yeah.
And how many words do you want it to be? And then calculate how many words you need to write each day to make that real. Keep that visible to you every day so that you can connect to it and get excited about it and have that compelling statement or compelling. This is the core concept from Think and Grow Rich. If you want to dive into it, there's the 6 steps of name, the thing that you want, when you want it by, and so that you can have it in front of you, read it often, connect to that energy of excitement, and don't try and write 100,000 word novel in one day. Just do the analytical thinking of, what do I need to do today to move myself towards the realization of this goal? Don't try and eat the whole elephant, as they say.
Yeah.
Just quote machine. Just try and break it down for yourself to go, what do I need to do every day to move the needle to where I want to be? Don't have expectations that of what you're going to do will be perfect the first time. Have some realistic boundaries around yourself for the first draft and the subsequent ones. Have some tolerance and some patience with yourself. Don't beat yourself up as to why you've done something and why maybe the outcome hasn't been what you want it to be. Just focus on the process. Focus on the input, and the output will take care of itself.
Every overnight success takes many, many years to accomplish. So
what's it say, 10?
There you go. So yeah, that was my attempt at a quote machine. I love it. Alex, thank you for making time for us.
That's a pleasure.
Looking forward to all 6. And I'm heading over to check out the YouTube links as well right now. So awesome. Encourage everyone to go check out the show notes and give Alex some love. For an amazing world of color. So thank you, Alex.
Appreciate it.
Sharing and inspiring us today. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. Thanks for being part of the podcast again. Appreciate you investing time in the show and you for listening this far. Thank you. One thing to keep in mind is we are looking for help and some support for the podcast. If you are able to help support our show, our little podcast show here, we can go over to livingthenextchapter.com and all the instructions will be there to help support the show. It takes about $30 to $40 a month to do this, just for the hosting and all of that other stuff that we pay for. But if the show is giving you any value and you're enjoying what's happening here, would love any kind of support that you can offer. That would be great. And you being here and sharing the show helps us grow. Helps us get great new authors on the show, connect with other listeners, and build community. So whatever you can do to share this show today, I really appreciate it. Thank you for being here for Living the Next Chapter, and I can't wait to share the next one with you. Talk soon. Have a great day.